안녕하세요. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Festival of Learning 2026 here in Seoul. This week, This week brings together three communities, AIAD, EDM, and Learning at Scale, not as three separate conferences, but as one shared festival of ideas, technologies, and people. Welcome, 환영합니다. Sorry, I only speak two languages. This slide is basically what the festival is all about. Beautifully multilingual, slightly overloaded, and somehow aligned. But the point is simple. This is a global community, and we're very, very happy to host you.
So this is the number of attendees, much larger than what we had originally expected. So thank you all for coming from all around the world. And you can see that we are representing 59 countries in all six continents. And if your country isn't represented by a circle, don't be shy. You're even more special because you come from a place that doesn't have hundreds of people like the US. But welcome all. We are a truly global community.
And as Juho already mentioned, the goal here was really to have an integrated program for AIAD, EDM, Learning at Scale to come together to have more than just the sum of its parts. And that's what brought us together to do a festival and have it all be in one Hoover program where you can navigate across three conferences easily. We also made sure to have programming that brings you together, panels, keynotes, workshops, tutorials that are organized across the entire event. So take the opportunity, meet people from other societies, make some new friends, have some soju and mekju, and have a good time. We spent around 3 years coming up with this event, and believe it or not, I'm actually sad to not be in these Wednesday morning or afternoon or night for some of us meetings discussing just how to make this event a success. And so I hope you will enjoy what we have planned for you.
Alice, Renee, and I are the co-general chairs of the festival, and we have three wonderful assistants. And if you've ever run a conference like this, you know that the assistants are the ones who've actually done the work. And we have registration chairs and assistants who've made sure that everyone gets here in a valid manner. We have local chairs, schedule and venue chairs who ensure everything's going okay with Seoul and COEX, timing, flows, and everything. We have sponsorship chairs and publicity chairs who ensure that we all know about what's going on, bringing in all the support needed to run this event. We have web and design and Hoover chair, keynote chair, and panel chair who are deciding what gets on stage and the talks and the conversations that are happening. We have meetup chairs and EDIA chairs who remind us that it's not just about the technical program, but also about diversity, community, and accessibility. And last but not least, we have student volunteer chairs with 102 amazing student volunteers. Let's give a round of applause. And if you see anyone in those purple shirts, make sure to say hi. If you also have any questions, you get lost, stuck, these are the people that you can reach out to. Okay, that was me again. And last week we started our program on Saturday. We already finished amazing workshops and tutorials. We had 22 workshops and 6 tutorials, and moderated by these amazing workshop and tutorial chairs. It was happening in multi-campus and Alice campus, and these are the sponsors of our event as well. Now I will hand over to AIAD.
Thank you very much. Hello. Yes. So hello. In the name of my co-chair and I, so we are very happy to have you here. Seiji, our president, is unfortunately not with us in Seoul. So similarly, we have a lot of people to thank for the organization of this conference this year, which is, as you know, a record-breaking event. So the two workshop chairs that were already mentioned, the doctoral consortium chair, the doctoral consortium will occur on Thursday. The late-breaking result chair, which will be with the interactive event chair on Thursday, Wednesday. The Blue Skies co-chairs, the Wide AI co-chairs, the practitioner on industry and policy co-chairs, so all have special session during the conference. The interactive event, so the demo co-chair together with the posters, the late-breaking result tracks. The DEIA fellowship chairs who contributed to select the scholarships recipients. We have a lifetime award chair, so there will be a specific moment before a keynote on Thursday. We have a very, very nice website chair. We did an amazing job. And we have the 3 awards co-chair also for the different best papers that will be given during this conference. And finally, we have the virtual experience co-chair. We have been working extremely hard on preparing the Wova application and all the different sessions that you can now have access to. And also our publicity co-chair for the different kind of communication we had to make during this preparation. So if you could, thanks all of them because they all did an extremely great job. And so there is a few slides that we also want to show. Actually, I forgot the proceeding share. Sorry. The proceeding share. My bad. So special. Okay. So then we have a lot of program committee members, 30% more program committee members than last year because we had, as we said, record-breaking events. So many of you are on this list, so you can try to figure out where you are. Okay, and this is an impressive slide actually we wanted to show. So as you can see, we are in a situation where AI Ed has become popular like we never imagined like 10 years ago. I'm not sure we can sustain this kind of evolution. So if you want to submit to EDM, to Learning at Scale, you are very welcome. That was a suggestion from... So, and a few more information. So as we mentioned, there are a bunch of additional tracks. Similarly, they have experienced an amazing increase of submission. And finally, so you may have received an information. So we had a hard time having the proceeding on time, but eventually they are all available from the AI websites. We made some effort in terms of organization of the paper. So as you can see, some of the tracks, they are in different parts, so all are structured in a way that will help you identify where you can find information that are relevant for your kind of research. And we also have supplementary proceedings. Similarly, they have been organized in more or less logical ways. So that's it for us.
Welcome, and on behalf of the EDM Organizing Committee, very excited to have you all here. Following from the others, we wanted to thank a lot of the organizers who really just made this possible. Not only is there organization happening within each of these conferences, but in order to synchronize across, there was even more moving parts and a lot of work that needed to be done. So huge thanks to all of our general chairs and the web chairs, industry track chairs, doctoral consortium chairs, the JEDM track chairs, poster and demo track chairs, workshop and tutorial chairs, EDIA chairs, proceedings chairs, and the awards committee, all really making this possible. So let's take a moment to thank those organizers as well. And similarly, huge thanks to the EDMS, the society itself, who also helped to organize across and keep the ball moving as we saw this through. And of course, huge thanks to all of our program committee, those who were doing meta reviews and the reviews themselves. So similarly, can't go down the entire list. We're on a very strict time here, so I will flash a lot of these names as well. And since we are EDM, we couldn't, again, avoid a presentation without some numbers in there. So similarly, we saw a large increase in the amount of submissions this year, about a 30% increase in the overall submissions from even previous years. We had 138 submissions to the full paper track, 114 submissions to the short paper track, which also, I think, shows that there's a lot of diversity in terms of even the types of papers that folks are pursuing. And we had an exceedingly large amount of high quality works this year, especially made it really difficult to whittle down to those numbers of accepted papers, and had the kind of acceptance rates to back that up. So all in all, again, we are kind of experiencing the largest EDM as part of this larger festival, and are really excited to see it through the rest of the week, and hopefully everything will run smoothly. And as I say that, the clicker stops working. There we are.
Hi, greetings. I'm Zach. On behalf of Learning at Scale, I'm the third to welcome you to Seoul, Korea, and the Festival of Learning. All good things come in threes, I heard a couple days ago. So. Here's our organizing committee. We're a small but very intrepid group. So this organizing committee handles all of the activities for Learning at Scale, which meant that our student volunteers are doubled as web chairs and demo chairs and poster chairs. So thank you to all of them, and my program co-chair, Alice O. We expanded or received 50% more submissions than last year, so we had to expand the program committee pretty extensively. You see about in reverse alphabetical order all the folks we reached out to. We had a separate set of program committee members that we reached out to for works in progress, emergency reviews, and on occasion, emergency reviews to fill in for the emergency reviews that had an emergency. It happens in this line of work, we understand. Thank you to our steering committee and our outgoing chair, Renee, and our incoming chair, Jennifer, who was program chair last year of Learning at Scale. And also thank you to Jan, our ACM liaison. We're pleased to have our proceedings be part of ACM Digital Library since the founding of the conference. Proceedings are here. You got an email from Huva about all of them. We accepted 35 papers out of 159, so 22% accept rate, 39 out of 65 for works in progress or poster papers. Both those categories will be in the proceedings, and then 14 out of 22 demos. Last slide here. This is the menu we have. Instruction, modeling, feedback, diversity, agency, AI and STEM, engagement, assessing, dialogue, behavior, and AI in writing. If you're interested in those topics, when there's large N size of teachers, learners, or other participants, come check it out and enjoy.
Fantastic. Well, so all of this work led to this incredible program that you will be able to experience over the coming week. I'll highlight a few things. All of the keynotes will be here in this auditorium, so will be the panels. On Thursday, as you can see, we've got both the doctoral consortium, on Tuesday is the doctoral consortium, and on Thursday we'll have the poster and demo session. Those will be in the, on this floor, on the floor below. Sorry about that. The one day that we will be in the downstairs room with this beautiful arch that has the logo will be tonight for the reception. And that logo will be gone after today. So if you want to take a picture with it, today is the day to do it. Otherwise, there's lots of great paper sessions for you to enjoy. And with that, I want to start talking a little bit about the keynotes. We've got 4 incredible keynotes planned for you. Our first one, Sooinn will be talking right after this opening ceremony. And then all other keynotes will be at 9 a.m. here in this room. We've got Ashok Goel giving a keynote, Bongshin Lee, and Vincent Aleven. All exciting topics that are timely as can be. In addition to keynotes, you will also be able to find here the panels and invited talks. We've got a number of panels, one later today here about assessment. Then we've got 3 panels on Tuesday, 2 of which are sponsored panels, all about topics related to transferring research into practice and creating great infrastructure for research. On Wednesday, we'll have a panel on old AI and new AI, and then a sponsored talk from Google about some of the exciting findings that they've had with Gemini, teaching with Gemini, and a showcase of different tooling. On Thursday and Friday, we have 1 panel each. The panel on Friday is one from our sister communities. Solar, EATEL, and ISLS representatives are coming together to organize this panel and cheekily call it, "Are we all AI ed researchers now?" So I invite you to come to some of these panels. While the keynotes are separate with no other programming, the panels you'll have to give up some paper sessions for, so choose wisely as you make those choices.
Tonight, we have a big reception on the first floor, right behind that big arch. 5:30 to 8 p.m. Please be there, and it's thankfully sponsored by the Gates Foundation. Thursday, we have this special event with local K-12 teachers. 50 teachers and 50 researchers are getting together for an hour to discuss how we might bridge classrooms and research. Unfortunately, all the signups are now, the slots have been filled due to high demands, but if anything opens up, we'll announce. Navigating the festival, I won't go into the details. These will be posted on Whova. Just a couple of things. COEX Underground Mall has hundreds of restaurants and options that you can choose from. Part of the reason we have a 2-hour lunch break to give you time to explore. And we have gender-neutral restroom and quiet room for those of you who need those places. And finally, photography policy is that it's welcome in sessions and general places, but when you are taking someone's photo up close, please get their approval.
All right, so we're coming to the close of the opening session. We have an Instagram account, and our student volunteers, our student organizers, are making it really fun. I'm probably a little too old to do any fun things, but please do follow us. Please share any posts, photos from the conference, and we have prizes. So you will be entered into a prize drawing when you make these Instagram posts. We want this is perhaps one of the most important things I want to tell you today. We want to be inclusive. We want to make sure that everybody's following the code of conduct. All details are on the website. If you do see something that concerns us, please do speak up. You can reach out to us, the general chairs, or any of the student volunteers. And last but not least, we have our wonderful sponsors, and the sponsor booths are next to the registration desk for today, and they're going to be moved up a little bit into a more visible space starting tomorrow. They're going to be people sitting at the sponsor booths, so if you want to meet them, please do go ahead. We have the Gates Foundation, we have the Learning Commons and Google, who are the platinum sponsors, and then we have the silver and bronze sponsors, Ellis, Multicampus, EEDI, and VitalSource. So with that, let's all go out and enjoy our conference. Well, don't go out yet because we have the keynote speaker. But enjoy the first keynote speaker here in this space, and then enjoy the rest of the week. Thank you.
All right. We've just opened this festival together, and there's no better voice to begin the keynotes than the speaker that I'm about to introduce to. Our speaker has spent her career proving that technology can change how people learn. Not in the standard classrooms, but in remote islands, in refugee camps, and in special education classrooms. Sooinn Lee is the co-founder and CEO of Enuma. Enuma's Todo series has reached 15 million young learners around the world, and their KitKat school won the Global Learning X Prize for supporting basic education to children in underserved communities. Recently, she developed AI digital textbook supplements for the Korean public school system, including support for special education classrooms. In recognition of her work, she has been named an Ashoka Fellow and the Schwab Foundation's Social Entrepreneur of the Year. Today, she asks us this provocative question. In an age when AI handles all the standardized tasks that we built our schools to teach, what is standardization still for? And what if an individualized plan for every learner could finally belong to all of us? Please join me in welcoming Sooinn Lee.
Hello. What an honor to be a first keynote speaker in this esteemed community. I had to admit, I actually realized that nobody actually put PhD or doctor after their name in that long list. I hold only Bachelor of Fine Art. And I never get any training in academia, either in education or even in fine art. So if my storytelling today or some of the presentation doesn't meet the high standard of academia, please bear me. I was a game designer, and I'm a CEO and co-founder of Enuma. We are education technology company, and people just give us some good word because we are a unique mission-driven company. We are empowering children, including those with special needs, to be independent learners. And I started with this, but nowadays I'm actually really rethinking that what is the meaning of special education? What is the idea of becoming independent learners? My journey all started when my son was born with special needs in 2008. I was a game designer. My co-founder, my husband, was a game programmer. So when we first found that our child will have difficulty in learning, I was so fearful. And I actually spent most of my time just watching him, how he learned, and also worrying him how he will learn tomorrow. In this beautiful preschool in Berkeley, designed for children with hearing loss and using the total communication, I just watched my children learn sign language and all those basic idea of early learning skills, and always very fearful when this tragedy will happen, when he will start to fail, when he will be very, very sad because he can't achieve anything compared to his peers. That inspired me to start a company with my husband and really decide to design something that is useful for children who are struggling in learning and can't follow school's curriculum on their peers' speed. I was a smart kid. So I never actually realized how many obstacles actually happening in children's learning process or small intellectual tasks in every day. Actually, when somebody gives a question and when children answer with their body or with their voice, each and every steps in here actually has a name of medical diagnosis. If somebody asks them question, they should listen. And they should understand that language. They should understand what is the meaning of that language. And then their attention span stays there from the beginning and ending, from the beginning to the end of the sentence. And they should understand they should understand the meaning, and then they need to know the answer with their cognitive skill. And it's not the end. Then their executive functioning have to work, and their motor planning should move. And then finally, if they can move their body, their voice, they can answer it. And this precious process can't happen if there is any distraction, the interruption around them. It's in normal education and as a just a standard human, we may not notice how many obstacles we actually just place in front of children and how much we ignore it on the way. When I first decided to design a math application for my child will soon go to the kindergarten, I just reminded that what I hate the most when I was in school system. It was all those them learning Kumon paper. So I just want to make Kumon paper bearable. Oh, the sound? Okay. So as you see, to just understand what is the concept of 1 + 1, this child may have many times of conversation with her mom if she's very lucky. Her mom may just give one candy to her, and oh, if I give you one more, how many in your hand? I just want to just show it again and again and again 100 times as a parent, I understand that it will be very, very boring process if I have to repeat it for 100 times. So I build a very beautiful game and place all the idea inside, all those beautiful interactions that leads children learning by doing, and put many accessibility features inside of the box. Because many of our early members are parents of children with special needs. We have children with visual processing problem, auditory processing problem, hearing loss, dyslexia, dysgraphia, and so many things. I released it in 2014, and this is still the most successful software with 15 million downloads. And how can I say? Unfortunately or luckily, most of our users are not struggling learners at all. Most of our users are smart kids from wealthy family in East Asia who want to touch the basic foundation of math at the age of 3, 4, or even 2. When I place Todo Math in the classroom, then I have another frustration. My child who is already have learning differences, autism, and other issues are not the most challenging student. How can I say? He is not the most challenging student in the classroom. In this beautiful small school in Berkeley, there are children who are from immigrant families who came from different language background, from low socioeconomic background, who just decide not participate in school at all because they hate school. So in the beginning, I thought that children may struggle in learning because they just can't understand, their cognitive skill is not capable. And then I slowly realized that it's a far, far bigger problem. And this photo is taken in 2017 from Mali. And we reached to that problem, the 100 years of gap in education. In 2014, UNESCO found that all children in the world enrolled to primary school. The enrollment rate was 108. So they actually assessed children to understand how much achievement they created in that primary education system in each country, and realized that 200 million students in there actually cannot read or write at all. And in 2017, another follow-up research by UNESCO said that 58% of children in developing countries' school actually cannot meet the minimum literacy and numeracy standard until age 10. And if they can't understand it by 3rd grade, they can't learn anything from 4th grade. And the number actually grew into 70% of failure rate after the pandemic. And when we just see that problem, I can see some similarity from special education I came from and the problem of broken system. It's just the same problem in children's point of view, whether they don't have glasses or the classroom is so dark, right? They just can't understand what is going on in the classroom. And if they can't get proper help, there is no learning happens. In 2015, the Global Learning X Prize competition was announced. Elon Musk donated $15 million, and UNESCO and Tanzanian government and X Prize Foundation just announced that if there is a software that can teach basic literacy and numeracy without teachers' help, for children very, very remote area in Tanzania, they will give that as a award. And the competition team should teach them in 15 months and prove about minimum literacy and numeracy of reading sentences and basic addition and subtraction. So the places like this, there was no school in history, and they just placed the solar electric system and just provide a tablet to each children. And we think that we actually know why children fail, and we know the environment, but it was all wrong. What is the problem of this? What is the problem of this question? 40% of children in Tanzania, rural area, can't distinguish the photo of a lion. Because there is no photo, no TV, they ever see the lion in their life. So if somebody show them image of lion, they don't know whether it's a dog or a lion or whatever the animal they ever see. But this has actually more problematic. This is not lion. This is a very characterized symbol system of lion. So if a kid to distinguish it as a lion, their mother actually had to show many different style of illustration of lion and many other animals in that style. And finally, children start to realize that if something has that color and that type of hair and that type of triangle tail, it can be categorized inside of the lion. But many of the software in developing countries or even in our culture, people just think it's cute. Because it's cute, it's children's. Many English education curriculum in developing countries say A is for apple. They don't care whether there is any apple or orange in that country. I grew up in Korea and graduated a good university and worked in IT industry. So we are inside of the developer's bubble. So if we make a beautiful software and if it is not working in their environment, whose fault it is? This picture is from micro-inclusive design, and they pointed that the designer, the smart people, sometimes they are the problem. I sometimes complain that half of the problem in education is because it is designed by education PhDs. Yep, this video is from Tanzania. It is not actually school. When we told that the video camera will come, the community leader just go to the market and purchase this clothing. So they are out of school children in Tanzania and they learn in this way. a very, very simple system. So there was no internet connectivity. So it's not an algorithm. It's just a basic reflection of their sound. When we record that, we think that it's so cute. And then we realize many problems in this video. They played in 2 hours like this, and after 2 hours, they can read basic syllables. But we actually had the same game in our commercial program, Todo Math and Todo English. Children never stay 2 hours in one game. It's only because they all play together. Actually, each of them has their individual device, but they always like to play in that way. I believe that some of researchers may understand why it is problematic. We can't track any of the data, right? These children, we have many test systems inside to track their progress and open the proper level of game. But in the morning, the leader of a community, the smartest kid, actually pressed the same button for 30 devices. So he solved all the questions, and all children just advanced to the next game together, right? So we really struggle to figure out how to teach those children. You have to take tests alone, right? In developed countries like Korea or Japan or China, if you just press the right answer in the back of 3 years old, the 3 years old will be very upset because this kid know that test should be tested alone, right? There was no way to teach them you should get that test alone. Our tracking was all very messed up, but we actually found we collect our data in very interesting way. It's from their sketchbook. So we put a very beautiful sketchbook inside with 36 different color pencils and the paper. And children are, in the beginning, because children doesn't know how to play with that, the early arts are very, very bad. It's dots and lines, and they start to learn to each other. And one day, they start to practice what they just see inside of the game. And we just collect all those beautiful art and the practices. And when we are working with, because at that time we are working heavily with researchers, they were very sad because there were some wrong answers. They think that if we can use AI and correct them on the right timing when they make a wrong answer, it will actually help children to learn better. At the time, because of the limitation, we couldn't intervene anything. But after several months, children, their answers start to become correct. And we can see how they truly learn, not from what they are, not from just all those questions and answers and tests, but just creating themselves and practicing and copying it with their art books. Children actually learn amazingly in that 15 months. So at the end of the competition, 40% of kids can read sentences, and 70% of children can do basic addition and subtraction. It is a cumulative number, and our number is higher. That's how we can become a co-winner of Global Learning X Prize. And then we spread this solution to many different countries in the world, mostly very, very remote last mile areas. In 2019, when we won the Global Learning X Prize, I thought that we can scale it around the world, but it didn't happen because pandemic hit. And after the pandemic's impact was ended and the schools started to reopen, Korean government announced this very ambitious AI textbook plan in 2003. They wanted to replace all the textbook into digital, and want to collect all the data from the classroom and provide AI assistant for teachers and AI tutor for the children inside of the classroom, and build the AI courseware for outside of the classroom, replacing cram school and personal tutoring. Unfortunately, this project was ended in 2025, 6 months after the national implementation, when the government changed their policy. It's all about data and data and data. So the Korean government think that collecting data and analyze it is a key of all those digital AI textbooks. So we collect tons of data. But and then because the policy has been changed, many education companies in Korea are struggling. Fortunately, we can actually keep going on our work with National Institute of Special Education to build the AI digital supplemental system for all special education classroom in Korea. It was 2025, and I realized that our work of our 12 years of journey may hit the wall. It's not because Korean government changed their policy of implementing AI digital textbook that is truly accessible and inclusive. It's not because of that, but our education system actually stuck on the wall. I actually feel that. This picture was drawn in 1899, 100 years ago. They imagine what will happen 100 years later. And in this illustration, teachers just literally ground down their books and put it straight to children's mind, right? The idea of education technology, radio, TV, internet, computer, CD-ROM, and AI actually dreamed the same thing. How we can just pull out all those contents from the book and put it to children's brain, individually, separately. There are so many different ideas of what is education. I will not argue it with you, but that is my favorite, to raise children into independent adults who can function well in society. That's a dream of all children, all parents who are raising a child with special needs, right? We all hope that they can have a room in their society. But in the society has many different aspects, especially in old days. In Korea, there were two different standards of being an adult. In the rural area for the lower society, if child can lift a sack of rice, they can become adult, right? They can function as a one functioning person in that farming community. And for the upper class people, the children should be educated and take the exam to become government officer. So if they hit certain level of curriculum, they are treated as an adult. In 20th century industrial era, we actually think being educated means, or being independent means, is becoming employee and employed by good company and earning a salary. So we actually build a curriculum that to become a good employee of many different industrial needs. And because after the machines era, because our muscle is not that needed, we think actually brain and mind is the only precious thing in human. So our society rewarding intelligence highly. In that chart, it actually shows that how the income by level of intelligence changed over time. And the right is the chart of all the jobs that require what level of intelligence. So even though all of those jobs are working very, very hard, the society actually rewarded very highly intelligent people very well and treated other people quite unfairly. And because the reward system designed so, we actually push our children into study all day long. So right now, they are spending 60% of their waking hours to study. Korea is there, but it says 50 hours, but that is only for Monday to Friday. It doesn't count other studying time on weekends. And billions of children left behind. Because our standardized education system is so narrow, it is counted only for children who are middle to above cognitive level in modern society, and wealthy family, or at least family who are interested in learning and can protect their learning environment for 12 straight years. Otherwise than that, children just fall into the crack. So right now, we are losing 70% of children around the world that is behind the minimum literacy level. And the age of intelligence added up in 2023. Before 2023, I actually say that, when AI comes in, we will have a truly helpful classroom tool that will help all children to learn in their own level. But I believe that you all know that in 2022, it was 2022, right? The ChatGPT-3 was appeared in the world, and people said that its IQ is about 80, and because of its hallucination, it's very hard to use. And in 3 years, we know this year, maybe the AGI, the smartest AI that is smarter than normal human brain will come out. And even if it is not this year, it will surely do so by 2029. So, Alvin Toffler said decades ago, the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who can't read or write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. We all know that anybody, any 14 years old, because ChatGPT is not available until 13, any people actually can do many great things with AI. They can write a textbook to match a curriculum and train an AI tutor. They can produce lecture video and quizzes on any topic. That is very sad because that's our job. But we also know that anybody who actually put the same prompt can get the same outcome. We can surely say that the quality and the hallucination and other things, but function itself is there, and it doesn't care the qualification of people who call it prompt anymore. But we all know our kids will not be that heroic and that amazing because other things happening right now. So in Korea, people just say that, our children's literacy level is down each year. What is the problem? What is the cause? But we all know that most of countries all say that their children's literacy level is going down through time. And the children's mental illness just soaring up. So right now, people said that 30% of university students actually has a mental issue. And the loneliness is soaring up after the era of digital. And in Korea, 600,000 youth between 19 to 39 are isolated and in social withdrawal in their house, in their room, mostly their parents' room. In Korea, there is only 200,000 newborns in each year. But we are losing 600,000 youth in withdrawal in their room right now. We have to rethink disability. In special education and in this world, actually we overcome most of disability like bad eyes, bad vision, or hearing loss, or sometimes the movement problem. There are so many technology. But until the cognitive can't be assisted well. But right now, AI come in, so I believe that there will be cognitive assistant come to for each person very soon. we have to rethink basic literacy. This problem set appeared in 2023 in USAID's EGRA. So now it is not asking, hey, asking not just the meaning of the sentence, but asking them to think if it is true or false. As we know, most of the information out there, outside of our classroom, are untrue. Right? Children are already influenced by all those false information or misleading information every day. So just reading itself is not helpful anymore. And rethink what we teach. That is a subject what we are creating nowadays, because we realize that children never saw a newspaper nowadays. They just see the only small box of news, very unevenly, and never see a whole newspaper that has politics, society, culture, art, sports together, because parents are not subscribing newspaper. They are not watching news with their parents through the TV anymore. They just watch YouTube, just pick something they like and don't care whether it is true or not. And parents also doesn't know what was missed, what was lost inside of the society. The time management, to stay safe, cleaning, organizing. Parents are protecting their children too much, and they don't provide any opportunity for children to explore those concepts on their own. So somebody needs to teach them. And I believe that in the future, those skills will be far more important than literacy and numeracy. And rethinking the way we teach. That's how we teach philosophy and ethics, right? So it is just a testing and taking the exams and so on. So we can't say any child who gets the best score in ethics exam actually has better judgment or have better ethical mind compared to those who has a low score in ethical exam. That is a good example of what the best use of AI and where education should go.
People with disabilities need care and help. What the fuck? People with disabilities need a voice. This is my story of how I was elected to the National Council of Switzerland. As a child, I was considered mentally disabled because of my speech impediment. I wanted to study economics, but one of my teachers convinced my parents that the risk of paying on the job market was for the great. At that moment, I realized that I had to get into politics to change the system. But
this video is mostly fake. So this is of the video of Islam Aliziz, National Council member of Switzerland, elected 2 years ago. But his cerebral palsy is quite serious, so his voice is not intelligible at all. He doesn't have a good body posture to look like that confident. So he actually used all those technology like AAC, synthetic AI voice, AI image video generation, and he can't speak English at all. So this is also used AI translation. But what makes him as a National Council member of Switzerland is not all those AI technology, his vision, his character, his creativity, and his team. I believe that human is becoming more executive officer who is running the team of AI. And when we are picking the employee and employer, our idea of who is a better one is very different. To raise a leader, we have very different value than an employee. So we need character, human skill, resource management and team building skill, and vision and purpose. And our education system is designed to build employee in large scale and is not designed to train a good leader. So the idea of education technology, I always question is like that. A teacher teaches knowledge, but it doesn't become a learning. We just pray, we expect, we hope the student to learn and function, right? There is not a strong correlation between teaching and learning. There is so many things happen, and I know all of you and all of us, me, actually try to raise the chances that children learn better, but sometimes the hope and the pray doesn't get any answer. And because the overall outcome is not enough for us, we like to use education technology. So we hope that we like to use technology to have better learning outcome. But is this a way to use technology? I think that we can actually rethinking education technology in very different way. A support system that ensure everyone can function at their full potential. But maybe somebody argue that is it a role of education? I thought so because in special education, assistive communication, assistive cognitive skills, and all of design is still inside of education system. And this should be designed when children are still young. When my son was young, I purchased this Playmobil school for him to prepare the school. And for me, school is about blackboard and that table and the chair and children that is staying in front of teacher. But he come from the school and play this game. It's a duck, duck, goose. And because of his limitation, he can't participate that game. So he is practicing it at home with those Playmobil again and again. At that time, I thought it's very cute, and I recorded this to show to his staff meeting in IEP. But then I slowly realized that school is not this part, but that part. School is not the blackboard and all those table and the books. It's not the building. It's a circle that teacher and children just come together and play. And we have to rethink about what is the purpose of human group and what they should learn. I'm dreaming of an individualized education program for all. I experienced it as a parent for the last 18 years, and we are also participating to build this system in special education classrooms. It is given only few number of students in the United States, 14%, and in Korea, 2%, because it's very, very expensive. It is designed for children who are not standardized, right? So because we don't know where they are, we assess them. And then once we assess them, we plan what is a proper education and what is a proper progress for these children. And then we teach with that plan and evaluate and just run the circle again. Right now, people just say that, hey, AI is already doing this and that, and they can do already amazing things. It's still far, far more way to go. I am waiting for AI that is enough for assess many different aspects of children's character, their what they like and what they don't like, their resources. Because right now, the test system in school are so narrow. If you go to special education, you will see how far they try to understand of this child. Right? And planning, teaching, evaluating, we know there is amazing technology and amazing theory is coming from this community, and assisting. Right? It's still I feel that it's very beginning, and it's still very expensive, and we care only for children who can't get standardized in any way at this moment, but soon our current standardization will not be that important. It will not be that meaningful. And then if we really want to know what to do at that moment, just look at what is happening in special education field. What we are doing for children who are not enough cognitively to get the society's intellectual task. So many children will get in that category very soon. Our goal should be ensure everyone reaches their maximum potential. It's also the goal of special education, and we all know that. And we know the goal of education is let children to reach their maximum potential. But when we are designing about AI, we are designing about the AI digital textbook, we are designing about new school system, we are not discussing enough about their maximum potential, not inside of that, not the ability to stay inside of the box, but just go spread out uniquely as a human being around, as a unique human being around the world. Sometimes I am feeling a bit depressed because I worked very hard, but my job is on peril because of the AI, and my child, especially my second one, who is very smart, I don't know what to do for her. And sometimes the AI seems like very big and very fast, while humans are still very slow and not smart enough. But I really like the idiom, is it idiom? The saying that even if the world will be ended tomorrow, I will plant an apple seed today. But in Korea, Daegu, the largest apple farming area, is not good for apple farming anymore because of the global warming. We may need to plant mango tomorrow. And when we are planting mango, we have to learn a lot, right? How to water the mango, what type of fertilization we should give to mango, and how to pick them, and what other support we need for growing growing mango tree. And then we will hope, we will expect, we will pray for this mango will plant and become a good mango tree one day. And thank you very much for listening my keynote in this precious time. And I hope that you have really precious time to answer so many questions we are having. And sometimes just don't know the answer at this moment. And we hope that you enjoy Seoul. Thank you.
Wow, that was a fantastic and very, very inspiring keynote. I would like to welcome Sooinn to the stage at the center. And now we have about 10 minutes or so for Q&A. If you have questions, you can raise your hand, and one of the SVs around you will hand you the microphone, and then I will point at you, and you can ask your question. So yeah, you can raise your hand if you have any questions. And in the meantime, I will start with a short question. As a designer of these education technologies, one thing that really stuck with me was the examples that you gave about the lion and how students are using a single iPad in a sort of a collaborative setting. And as designers, we continue to make these mistakes of not understanding what the users are actually doing. Do you have any lessons from your own design process about how we might be able to avoid these mistakes?
No, there is no quick path. Nowadays, our team actually uses AI a lot on our process, and we realize that our observation skill is actually going down over time. So we really worry about that. So sometimes, especially for user interaction design for young learners, only observation can actually help us to make a better interaction. There was no shortcut.
So carefully observing the users.
Yeah.
Great, I think we have a question over there.
Hi, thank you very much for your presentation. My name is Amir. I'm from Canada, Vancouver. First of all, I have to admit that I'm touched. When it comes to education, all of us have one thing in common. We do that because we love our job. What drives us is passion, not the fear of the management. So what I'd like to ask you is that the impression that I got from your speech is that now that we have AI to do standardized stuff, whatever we call it, we perhaps have to focus on teaching our children life skills. Because for the past 200 years, the education system taught our children how to be a good worker. There was no creativity, there was no entrepreneurship, there is no life skill, there's nothing. Perhaps now that we have AI, we can focus on other aspects of teaching. I wonder, what are your plans or what are your thoughts, how we can incorporate life skills into our classrooms? I'm looking from university background. Unfortunately, I'm not teaching K-12 anymore. I did it 20 years ago, but I'm not at the university level. But I would love to hear your thoughts, how we can bring life skills into our classrooms, even technical classes, such as teaching, programming, and all that. So what are your thoughts? Thank you very much.
For me, I think that it's not the time for education technology. I think it's a time for the human community and the teacher and teacher-student interaction and student-peer interaction. I was very interested in the concept of Alpha School. I don't know you ever heard, I believe that you heard about Alpha School. This is a very expensive private school system in United States. They teach only 2 hours with AI and let children spend all of our time for project-based learning and art or sports. That sounds fantastic. But I was very disappointed when I see that they are doing just all those dumb test prep for that 2 hours. Because I believe that learning is not just taking the test prep anymore. And there will be so many things can happen inside of sharing the intellectual knowledges to each other, but they totally ignore that part yet. So for the real life skill, I think that most of those culprits are not school parents. I was very interested in reading that latest article that today's children actually have very low reading skill and low communication skill. It's not because they watch YouTube. It's because their parents are addicted to SNS and doesn't speak enough time with their children. Our children doesn't have enough time to speak with their parents. They are not speaking to their peers anymore. They are all watching their phones side by side, right? So I believe that our current life is very different from what I thought that should be. And school, inside of school system, we actually don't understand what is actually happening outside of the school. So for the life skill, I think that the most important thing is parents' education and just realizing what is missed outside of school and just try to intervene it inside of the school site. But it will not use AI, it will not be the role of education technology. That's how I feel.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we have the next question there.
Thank you very much for the very interesting keynote and the ideas that you have presented. I was wondering about standardization as a concept and unlearning it altogether. So standardization comes with an assumption that it holds this group of expertise behind doing a certain thing like teaching in a certain manner that leads to a highest outcome. And while I do agree with you that personalization has a lot of benefits, and I myself work also on personalized education, it is still costly. And at some points, it doesn't always lead to a higher outcome. This is why we have concepts like group learning or classrooms and so on. Apologies. So my question, is the message actually moving away from standardization to a completely personalized educational system, or is it about extending and diversifying the standards that we have because they are still falling short in terms of covering all the student groups? And perhaps extending this standard and diversifying the groups that are making benefit of it would be a solution in between, leaving away standardization and relying only on personalization. Thank you very much.
As I share that, I don't have a degree on education, and I'm just a practitioner. But when we see the current school system, there is only two areas that has individualized education. One is a talented kids, another is children with special needs. In Korea, actually, talented education is spending more than special needs education. Right? So the reason why I just bring the idea of individualized education plan is it's still inside of the classroom, and they are using it very well to build social skills and to build a classroom and let children just speak about the same topics while they are approaching it in their own way. I am not the fan of all those what it is, the individualized learning that is happening between devices to children or just happening on their own. Just my hope that children should be together and we will all learn together. I think that is the goal of the school system, and it is a goal of human society, and we will just continuously keep it. But while doing so, why we should teach them in that way, I actually still can't find the answer. Maybe there will be some smart children we really want to push for his limitation of the end of the coding or the medical skill or biology. But while doing so, there are so many other children who will get a benefit of just tuning their art skill, tuning their voices, tuning their play skills, and learn how to enjoy the life and how to become a meaningful member of the society. And I believe that when we are discussing about individualized education or individualized lesson outside of special education, that is looking quite weird in my point of view. That's why I say, hey, just think about what is happening in special education classrooms and how they do the individualized education plan and how they just put everybody put together to become independent adults still inside of the society. Does it make sense? Thank you.
Yeah, there.
Thank you very much for the excellent and inspiring talk, Sooinn. Hopefully I pronounce your name correctly. My name is Alexandra Krista, and I'm from Durham University. So I have a question and an invitation. So the question is about culture. So you've shown actually classes for marginalized students and for special needs students from different cultures, and I was wondering if you see different needs in terms of also related to where these kids, these students come from, and if there's some kind of cultural difference. So this is my question. The invitation is, I'm chairing the YDAID track, and I think it has a lot of connection with what you're talking here, and I'm also wanting to invite the other people in this room. So on Wednesday and on Friday, we have several sessions on YDAID and people from marginalized communities and from underserved communities, so please do come and attend.
Lovely. Yeah, unfortunately, I have to leave early, but yeah, thank you very much for the invitation. For the developing countries, we know US number, 14% of children in the United States actually recognized as a special learning needs or special needs and get a special education. The data is there. But when you go to developing countries, there is no data. We know that there will be definitely other issues that may prevent their learning, like for example, malnutrition or infection and lack of treatment, lack of glasses, and there are so many things, but there is no data. When we are testing in Tanzania, children not accumulatively, each children actually spent more than 400 hours on learning. And our design, if children actually spend 500 hours on learning, they should learn something. But 40% of them actually scored 0. I still don't know why. So I actually went to the researchers in developing countries' education and asked her why. And she said, oh, in developing countries, 50% of children doesn't respond to any intervention. It is not unique to your case. I still can't get the answer, right? I just assume that many of them, because we know that it's learning readiness is very different from country to country. And in some country, the number is half of other country, right? So, and people said that the average IQ of the world population is not 100, but 85, 84, around that. So maybe there will be totally different large number of population that we have to think totally differently how to teach and what to teach, how to communicate. If they are not working well with the literacy system, can you get the help of multimodal AI to communicate more effectively with them? We don't know the answer yet. So I always wish that we can learn a lot about how to teach children and how to teach them more effectively outside of our very limited literacy system. And I hope that we can just continuously go there, and there will be so many work we will do in the era of AI. Thank you.
Right, due to interest of time, let's get one final question, hopefully short.
All right. Thank you very much for your interesting talk. I'm Hiroaki Ogata from Kyoto University, and I have one question about the consent from the parents and the students and teachers. How to get consent or agreement or approval. I think, yeah, actually I'm doing the research project, but always I have a problem with get consent from the parent because they are very worried about the data protection or privacy issues.
Data protection and privacy, yes.
Yeah.
The best way is not collecting anything. In Korea, even in special education supplement that is run by government, children need to put all those passwords every hour. So it is not working, right? So data protection, I understand that data protection is a very sensitive issue. So in some developing countries, we actually provide about anonymous system that children just can choose whatever they like to do and play with that because we can't handle data. And in our research project, many of foundations wanted to see the data. And recently, many countries actually want to hold that data within their country boundary. It actually added difficulty in our work. I understand that it is very sensitive, and we try to protect. We align the guideline, and it actually make our work a lot more difficult. And many countries actually just have a very good-looking data policy without any reality, understanding of reality, or the idea of how the real infrasystem is working, especially in developing countries.
Okay, with that, we'll conclude our opening keynote session. Let's thank our speaker, Sooinn Lee.
Much.
And we'll have a coffee break right outside. Thank you so much.
Welcome, everyone. Thanks for coming. This is really loud. I'm Danielle McNamara, and I'm really glad to see you all. We are going to be talking about assessment in the age of AI. And the title is From Snapshots to Continuous Evidence. And so before we start, I'd like everyone to introduce themselves. I'm really fortunate to be up here with amazing people who I've known for a while, and some are new friends. Welcome. I'm Danielle McNamara. I'm at Arizona State University, and I'm the director of a Learning Engineering Institute, and I've been working in the field of intelligent tutoring and natural language processing and assessment and AI for quite some time. And so I think about this kind of thing as in my spare time. So it's something that a lot of us care deeply about, and so I am just thrilled to have a chat and share their knowledge with you about assessment and infrastructure and how to move forward in this age of AI. So without further ado, we will have introductions from our panelists. And so shall we start with Renee?
Happy to. Hi. My name is Renee Kozolcic. I'm faculty at Cornell in the Department of Information Science, where I lead the Future of Learning Lab. I'm also leading the National Tutoring Observatory. I think a lot about assessment in different domains, from K-12 to domains like medical education, where we have various projects that are using AI in helping people self-assess, helping people understand what to learn next, helping sort of program directors understand where students are at. So look forward to this panel.
Okay.
Alice.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Alice Oh. I'm a professor of computer science at KAIST, which is a university about 100 miles down south from here. My main research is in natural language processing, and I guess people now commonly just refer to it as LLMs. We do a lot of evaluation of model capabilities, the large language models, but we also do the human side, so assessment of students when they try to use AI in learning. So I look forward to discussions in this panel. Thanks.
Thank you, Alice. Ken?
Ken Kadinger. I'm in the Human-Computer Interaction Department at Carnegie Mellon University. Like Danielle, been doing AI in education for a long time. I was going to put a number on it. Should I put a number on it?
Go ahead, do it.
40 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the years.
My first intelligent tutoring system that I worked on was a genetics tutor in 1986, I think. So, I was in a PhD program in computer science, but after a while decided that rather than sitting around thinking about intelligence, that it might be better to study it. So I switched to psychology and got a cognitive psychology PhD. And then I spent a little time, at some point between my PhD and postdoc, doing some teaching in a city public school of geometry. I just want to emphasize that because my perspective on this is about trying to solve the problem, not about a discipline, but about finding all the disciplines that can help us solve these tough problems that we're facing. And I'll leave it at that for now.
Sheila.
Thank you for having me. I was just about to start with the fact that I just turned 40. So...
And there's that.
And there's,
Happy birthday.
Well, this year, but it's in reference to your 40 years in this discipline, so I'm kind of a newbie in the space. I wear 2.5 different hats at the moment. I am the director of research at OpenStax. For folks here who don't know what OpenStax is, OpenStax publishes high-quality, peer-reviewed textbooks that are accessible to all students, and we have students from all over the world reading our textbooks that span all the way from humanities to social sciences to STEM disciplines. and also develops learning tools and resources that help students not just have access to the textbooks, but be able to effectively utilize the textbook as a learning resource. I am the scientific director for Safe Insights, which is a US-based national education R&D infrastructure. And in that capacity, I'm working with the research community to think about how we can work with protected and private learner information in a safe way to help move the field forward, but also generate this virtuous cycle that can help the learners and educators that we are intending to serve. And last but not the least, I work very closely with an AI for Education lab based out of the Rice Electrical and Computer Engineering Department, and we are actively working on understanding the limits and the constraints of LLMs and how they can play effective tools to help increase opportunities and enrich the learning experiences for students. So that's all about me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So one of the things that we are going to do today is to test the limits of technology all the way to asking you to participate. So the irony of that we're going to be talking about snapshots of assessment is we're going to take snapshots of assessment. So if you would be so kind as to access the menti.com that you have there and respond to the question.
More answers than people in the room.
There are. So in essence, what percentage of learning do we capture while in our current system of education? They're still coming. 139. We kind of are getting a trend. Deb Sheila, what did you think the answer was going to be? Where would you have put this?
This, in some ways, this kind of matches my mental model of how I think about assessment and how much is measured by our systems. So much learning happens within learning environments or digital learning environments that are instrumented for measurement, and others happen outside of it. They're happening every moment as a student or a learner is interacting with any system, as they're having any interaction with their teachers, their peers, their family. Everybody is a learning organism, and they are learning every minute. So in some ways, I was leaning more towards the lower end of the distribution, but this is in some ways not too far off.
Renee, where would you have put this?
I would have gone to less than 10%.
Yeah, and why?
Because
Where are we now on this?
Well, I think there's so many things that we learn that we do not assess, and even the things that we do assess is reducing it to only a few parts of it, right? Even in a, when you do a final exam, you can only sample like 30% or so of what you've taught to really test on. And that's just the things in that class. Think about all the teamwork that students are doing, all of the time management that they're working on, all of the, so many things are happening as students go about. And that's just, thinking about the schoolwork. There are so many other things that they are learning that we are not assessing. So, assessment today, I think, captures a very specific piece. And I think our keynote hinted at sort of the standardization of assessment as well, which relates to this question.
And Ken, what are you thinking about assessments today in your work?
Not about this.
Yeah, no,
Oh,
where are
well,
we now?
Well, I guess, one of my thoughts about this, just to go with that for a second, is that if we're talking about the goals that schools have set for themselves, which are in some ways way too narrow, I think I might go on the right here and say that we do an okay job, especially if you look at how consistently psychometric analyses show unidimensionality, which suggests that even though you sample a limited number of, let's say, math or reading items, that they tend to pretty well predict the performance on many of the other unseen items. But certainly if we're talking about all the things we are learning, and 80% of our waking time is outside of school, and as Sheila said, we're learning every minute, right? So much of our learning is outside of what we measure, so I put it on the other side for that.
Alice, what were your thoughts?
So I think about generalization, right? So the way we evaluate models is like there's training data, and then we test, is the model able to generalize beyond what it's seen during training, so like unseen data. I think it's very similar with people too, right? Like when we teach kids how to do arithmetic, it's not just, can you do it on paper? Like, can you do 2 + 3 is 5 on the paper? It's actually like the real world arithmetic that we have to, that's the objective of, that's the reason we do education, right? But I don't think the current assessment actually is able to generalize how students take the knowledge that they learn in school and actually apply in the real world.
Mm-hmm. I'm really struck by the what do we assess. So we followed the model for so long of if you give a set of questions in a course, and then you give that set of questions, and you're assessing, if you assess 30% of the material in the course, then you have, it generalizes, right? But we're really focused on assessing facts. And one question would be, is that really the goal of education? So if we're assessing the memory for content in one of your books, for example, free books, wonderful books, or if we only assess your ability to solve certain equations, is that assessing what the end goal of, what our goal of education is, and how can we, how are we doing that? So I'm going to move on to the second poll, or actually, thinking about when we are learning, as we've been discussing, that learning is continuous. It's a continuous process. And yet, a lot of education is organized around exams and quizzes, and they are attempting to assess what someone knows as a function of these episodic assessments. And so one question is that enough? Is that we've really operated on the principle that having those proxies is sufficient, and having those grades are deterministic to have whether or not someone will, predicting whether or not someone will succeed in society. And so some of it has to do with, is it enough? And part of it has to do with, is it going to continue to be enough in the age of AI? So one question I have for our panelists is the extent to which, you see these two worlds as colliding. Alice.
Yeah, so let me sort of publicize our recent Kai paper, which won the Best Paper Award, by the way. So it was taking AI, generative AI, to middle school English writing classes. And because assessment in middle school writing classes, English writing class in Korea, is based on these like standardized homework and quizzes and things like that, students were using generative AI to produce the output. And the teacher was no longer able to tell who was struggling. So the assessment part just completely failed because students were now getting help from AI. I mean, so the intention was good, but the learning may have happened, but the teacher just would not know.
Sheila, what are you thinking?
I need you to reframe your question for me, because I think I need to understand. So what you were asking is, how are these two worlds colliding? Okay. So, like I said, learning happens all the time, everywhere. And not much of it is instrumented to be visible to researchers to understand what exactly is happening. Additionally, learning is always about attaining this objective, right? When you're thinking about an assessment, you have a specific learning goal, and then you think about, okay, what do we need in order to be able to measure that goal? And then we think about, okay, now we are going to get the students to respond to the question in a way that makes that goal attainable and the understanding visible to the researchers. So in some ways, yes, this is in a way colliding. It's colliding in terms of our approach to assessment. And then there is this deep technical barriers to kind of marrying these two effectively together. So, like I said before, it's just all of these systems that you use for learning, things that are instrumented to make the learning visible, are different, fragmented, and putting them together is this unsurmountable task. And so there is this need for an infrastructure to really think about, okay, how do we meaningfully bring these together to understand learning as a dynamic, continuous process? And I do have some thoughts on that, but I will kind of share them as we kind of move through the questions today.
So we have to wait.
Yes.
Okay.
Stay tuned.
Okay, yeah. We'll wait. So I'm going to move on to our second poll, which, oh, no, I'm not. I forgot the order of my slides. So let's take a case scenario. So thinking about Maya, who is learning statistics through AI, tutoring, conversations, simulations, reflections, journals. Okay, so we have a student who is, the learning process is happening through many, many different engagements, collaboration, portfolios. And then, as we see, her assessments are typical quizzes, exams, projects, and a grade. But the actual learning process is within collaboration, feedback, problem-solving processes. So one part of it is the extent to which we are not taking advantage of those interactions to understand where she's at. And part of this has to do with, you're talking about goals. You have a goal, and that assessment gives you a goal. But another part of it has to do with the purpose of assessment. So why are we assessing Maya? You know, the exam gives a grade, but what are you going to do with the grade? And why are, you know, what are we trying to do in education? What is the goal of these processes? Is it just to learn? And in a way, we want to boil down to what is the purpose of assessment? And why are we doing it? Renee, why do we assess students? Why are we giving the exams? And why are we engaging in these different activities?
It's a great question, Danielle. There's a number of reasons why we assess students, right? One is to give them feedback, very simple, as to how they're doing right now on their learning journey. Another is to certify, right? We need to assess medical doctors to make sure that they are certified, they know what they're doing. Another is to be able to guide what an instructor is doing, right? If I'm instructing students, I may assess them in order to understand, did they understand what I just taught them, or do I need to explain this again better? That's just a few reasons, there's more, but it's important to start with what the goal is of conducting an assessment, whether it's episodic or more continuous, because it should inform the way that it's structured, right? When you are doing an assessment that's high stakes, like a medical certification, you would want to have psychometric properties that are aligned with that kind of high stakes decision making, which you may not need to hold to the same standard if you're just trying to get a sense of whether the kids understood what you just taught them, or whether they sort of got the ideas from an assignment. So I agree very much that that's important to keep in mind. The other thing that I think is important with assessment is that we do know from the literature that the testing effect is a very strong effect to help students learn, right? If you give students a test, just knowing that there's a test, going through the motions, preparing for it, retrieving knowledge, all of that is very helpful for their learning. And so sometimes I'm a big fan of continuous assessment, stealth assessment. I do sometimes worry that by taking away the testing effect, which I think happened to some extent during the pandemic, as did many other things, we may end up losing some learning gains because students don't have this sort of episodic event where they have to prepare for something that feels high stakes.
So in a way, you're saying we need both. And you kind of said we need both. Episodic exams as well as the other. Ken, what are you thinking about? Yeah.
Well, I'm looking down this list, and I disagree with this title because AI systems have captured all 8 of these.
Mm-hmm.
The question isn't can they, it's can we do better than what we've already done? And I think it's very important, especially since we have so many newcomers in this field, to highlight that.
Mm-hmm.
There have been systems that have done all of these things. We need to do them better. And we especially need to connect them to other forms of assessment. And we shouldn't take the standardized assessments as a gold standard. It may be the only thing we have to compare against. Well, before I say that, let me just say quickly, one example, in the early years of the assessment project, before Neil and Chris really took it over, Heffernan took it over and ran with it, I was somewhat involved, and so was the psychometrician Brian Junker. And together we did an investigation of whether year-long use of that system could predict their state test in Massachusetts in middle school math. And it did with a 0.82 correlation with a pretty complex regression model. But the regression model that was fit to 1 year was used not only in structure, but in actual parameter values on the next year's data. And it dropped from 0.83 to 0.82. Super accurate prediction. But one thing about that, which is a big problem with AI systems more generally, is we don't really understand what those extra parameters are doing. Some of them were about the continuous process. The more students did, the better they did on the exam, probably because they were learning throughout the whole year, for example. The number of hint requests was another predictor variable. But we don't fully understand why those models predicted very well. So that's just one of many places where we could improve. By the way, the cognitive tutors, Steve Ritter and company, have a very similar paper with very similar results. So it's not just that system. But that is possible. It's been done. But we need to do it better and need to understand why it works, what else is getting measured, how do the motivation and self-regulation patterns mix in with the competence patterns, for example.
Yeah, they're all happening at different temporal scales as well. So what kind of infrastructure do we need in order to combine the various activities, the constructs that we're measuring here, along with the episodic assessments? So the next poll we have for the audience has to do with our ability to assess these things. And that is, which type of evidence is underutilized in education today? So, if you can access the mentee again.
Can they just pick one?
They can only pick one. Yeah. And we also didn't include a non-choice. Other, right. This is, well, don't talk during an assessment.
All the cardinal rules. People have to import that pressure.
Interesting.
Huh.
There's probably some bias coming from actually seeing those. Maybe. But what's clear is all five are actually, to have support.
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't have guessed there were that many people in the room.
Actually, yeah. Definitely more than 100.
So one thing that's coming out is real-world performance, but another is...
That's the right answer, by the way.
And that yes, those of you who answered that is somewhat true, but is it true? Because if I give you an exam, and then it's assessing something about real-world performance, then have I assessed it?
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. I was actually thinking about assessing in the real world when I was interpreting that, which I think we really ought to be able to do better. And there are some examples of that. But, we have so much instrumentation in so many workplace activities today, right? That if we could just interpret from that natural instrumentation. Like one example in our work, we have college students tutoring middle school math students, and they do it remotely. So we have videotapes through Zoom of their tutoring interactions, right? And we can assess their tutoring as they're actually tutoring. And we can also compare it against our training-based formative assessments to see if each other predicts them. But I could imagine doing that for, well, I think Ryan Baker did a study with programming where he looked at GitHub submissions as real-world evidence of learning to code. So, again, there's a little bit of progress there, but I think there's so much more. And ultimately, that's what we want our assessments to do, is predict out-of-school stuff, right?
Mm-hmm. What surprises you about the answers, the responses?
Well, I was thinking more for collaboration, because that one is really difficult to measure and also very important. Yeah. And as Ken said, now that we have all kinds of ways, instrumentation to use to see collaboration, maybe we can do better there.
Renee, what were your thoughts?
I think all of them are very good answers. I'm a little surprised that longitudinal growth got that many responses, which I always feel like that's one of the things I look at when I teach and I see students maybe struggling at the beginning and then they do better and better over time, and then I'm less worried about them, at least within a course. I'm like, okay, you're getting it now. It's maybe hard at the beginning, but you're on a good track. So that one, maybe it's not long enough, right? Maybe it's not long enough to just see it in one course, and that's what people are reacting to. But I agree that we very rarely observe the learning process. We often just observe the final outcome. And that's a real problem for measures of AI literacy and AI fluency, where it really matters how you get to the final outcome. Collaboration is very difficult to observe. Big frontier, I think, for this community to think about that also in relation to using AI collaboratively, and there's some effort going into that direction now. Feedback uptake is also a good one, right? We like to give feedback. Giving feedback is effective sometimes if it's done right, but we rarely observe really carefully how students are how they take it, what they do with it, how much they revise. I think there's a lot of things that are not quite taken into account to the extent that we would want to know to optimize the process and give better feedback maybe on the learning process, or figure out how to better communicate with students.
Alice, if you could have added something to the list, what would you have added?
Ooh, I want to say like curiosity, but like other sort of maybe self-motivation, engagement, like all these things that are kind of softer. I don't know, like meta learning skills. I'm not an education researcher. I don't know what the right term is, but that seems like, yeah, like meta cognition, meta learning, that kind of. Yeah.
And I mean, one of the challenges in education has been in we can measure knowledge. You can measure how well someone can read or do various aspects of mathematics. But these kinds of things are harder to assess. We can assess metacognition. That's definitely something we've done, and various things. But things like, I would say one of the most challenging things to do in an assessment is to assess critical thinking. And that to me, communication, critical thinking, and the ability to engage in critical thinking is one of the hardest constructs and to teach and also to assess. The one thing that strikes me is longitudinal evidence as being hard to assess, and that's kind of related to safe insights and the goal of safe insights. Do you want to tell the audience a little bit about safe insights and how that is working toward addressing that with infrastructure?
Absolutely. So the key thread that kind of like weaves through all of these different categories, at least from where I'm sitting, is that it really needs to involve looking at different contexts in which students are immersed and be able to meaningfully bring them together. And also look at evidence over pretty long periods of time. And this has been a challenge, as I was saying before, that all of these different contexts are embedded in systems that are fragmented and siloed, and rightfully so, there is a lot of hesitancy around bringing researchers and giving them the data to do, like to investigate and examine their questions. And because there is a lot of responsibility on the systems and their developers to protect the information of the students that are present in those systems. So one of the ways to really think of helping reduce that friction is by centering on protecting student privacy, and that has been our approach at Safe Insights. So Safe Insights is a national education R&D infrastructure that is currently under construction, that will be ready for a beta starting early next year. And the key foundation of the design is, currently if researchers want to go and work with a specific system, they have to approach the system. They kind of have a negotiation. Then after anonymizing the data, the system hands the data over to the researchers to address their specific research question. And that still has certain liabilities attached to it. So what we have done within Safe Insights is that we enable researchers to work with the data, where data may or may not be anonymized, by sending the researcher's analysis to the data instead of taking the data out of the system and giving it to the researchers. So think of it as a compute to data model versus a traditional data to compute model. So the key idea is that we are building a network of different learning infrastructures to come together, yet retain complete autonomy over their systems and never have to worry about the data leaving their systems, yet they can make their entire breadth of data available for researchers to work with. So we are creating the supports for researchers to still be able to effectively answer the research questions that they need to answer and move the field forward, but have less responsibilities on their shoulders in terms of making sure that they are not doing anything wrong that puts a student's information out in the world somehow. So that's a little bit about Safe Insights. Would you like to add something to that, Danielle?
Well, part of the long-term vision also has to do with connecting these systems and just the ability to connect a system. So part of what's being identified here is the challenge of assessing longitudinal growth has to do with the infrastructure necessary to connect those dots across time, but also across contexts and systems, and how to do so that we have a measure in 5th grade, and then as well as in high school, and then in college. And another thing I really appreciate here in terms of insights has to do with the real world performance, because being in higher ed, a large disconnect is between a degree that you get, your credential that you have, and then your ability to actually perform in that job. So the connection between what we're learning and then our ability to move on is, it's a challenge. And connecting the real world with our educational systems. So another question has to do with evidence. So what kinds of evidence do we have, and what evidence counts? So another live poll, 5 years from now, what will be? So now we have to go into the future. We're in the age of AI, ostensibly. It may be the same in 5 years, but what is the most important source of evidence about learning? Of all the things that we've talked about, what is most important?
corporate learning process data would include like the projects and portfolios and exams even. Maybe. Really difficult to
Now, one thing that I find interesting is that in the previous survey, one of the things that was being assessed successfully is learning process. That had a very low level of not that, I guess we're doing a double negative, but if we are successfully already measuring the learning process, and it is the most important. But then the episodic assessments do not tap into that. So Ken, what's your thoughts about our poll here?
Well, I think I agree that we have made good progress on tapping into learning process data, and that it will continue to be important. You know, and we've made progress on infrastructure, you know, with the help of Ryan Baker and John Stamper over there. We started accumulating ed tech data sets in 2004 in DataShop. There's something like 5,000 plus data sets there. And a couple of years ago, sampled 27 of those from middle school to high school, math, science, and language learning domains. And I really wanted to get at, you know, what you might call it one of these higher order skills, like do students differ in the rate at which they learn, and can we detect that within these data sets? And it turns out we can, but actually what was most striking about that data is how similar the rates of learning were across students. And even though all those students in every one of those samples had met the prerequisites of the course, their intercepts on those learning curves were at least an order of magnitude bigger than the variation in the slope. So I'm saying that partly to say, again, we have made progress on infrastructure. We have a lot of learning process data. But I think there's still a lot of open and interesting questions. Like I was just talking to Phil Pavlik earlier today, and he was saying, I don't know, you sure that result is true? And I'm not. It was super surprising. It turns out that if we look at a subset of the domains that are more verbatim fact, like foreign language learning, we do see more variability in learning rate. And one of the things we hypothesized in that paper is that for a lot of tasks in which you can use facts or skills or sense making, that some folks might be, say, like me, bad with verbatim memory, but make it up with sense making, and that we see evenness in learning rate in those more complex domains because there's a kind of compensatory effect. But that's an open question, a super interesting and important open question, right? And so I think there's huge opportunities in the next 5 or more years to look at that learning process data to try to better understand things like this learning rate variation issue.
Renee?
I agree. I think the results are partly influenced by this 5 years from now piece. 5 years is not, I mean, it feels long now with AI moving that fast, but in the world of education, 5 years is not that long for changing the standards of evidence. And so, yes, exams will still play an important role, and we will see more project-based learning because it's the right thing to do and get more at the more real-world-like performance that people were looking for in the previous survey. But I would challenge the field to think about how can we mine perhaps the process data to get at some of these constructs that we really care about, right? The keynote speaker mentioned a few constructs that she thought were very important for students going forward when AI can be used for automating some of the things or doing some of the more cognitively boring tasks perhaps. And so how do we see what good teamwork looks like, what critical thinking looks like, what curiosity looks like, whether students are engaging with a mastery orientation to what they're doing rather than just getting it done. While we have done some important progress on using process data. I think there's a lot to still be done and a lot of interesting work to do.
Alice?
Yeah, I just want to add one thing about the learning process data. So we did some research on how our college students learn to program. And one of the sponsors actually has a system for online programming learning. And they actually capture keystroke level data. So I just want to raise this issue of granularity. So when you talk about the learning process, are we talking at the level of, today this student solved 30 problems, or like this month, this student got an 80 out of 100 on arithmetic, and the next month they got 90 out of whatever. That granularity versus like keystroke level, what is this student doing? And we actually did a little project in which peers were looking at each other's coding data, looking at the keystroke level. So I could see, let's say, like Renee typed a bunch of, for statement, and then he erased it, and then like he rewrote it as like a while statement, whatever, right? So all this very granular data is there, and how I can interpret his learning from that keystroke level data is very much different from like a much coarser level of learning process data.
Just responding to that, I completely agree. And I think there's an opportunity here where we can use new ways of perceiving what students are doing, video, audio, which we've done before, of course, and people have spent hours and hours coding video recordings in order to analyze what is going on. And using AI tools now to automate some of that coding, scale it up, which I think is a huge opportunity from a computational social science standpoint, being able to turn video into data, turn audio recordings into data in privacy-preserving ways, but being able to analyze some of these, sort of minute interaction patterns that are otherwise difficult to analyze at scale.
One of the challenges that I observe that I am observing in higher ed is something I was kind of alluding to in the continuous assessment versus the two worlds colliding with exams, is the extent to which an essay can continue to assess someone's knowledge in an age where that can be performed by an AI, or assessing someone's knowledge of something when what we're really interested in is your ability to use the knowledge. And how do we do that, and how do we move toward doing that along with AI, or in collaboration with AI? What do you think of that, Ken?
Good idea.
Excellent. So, Ken, walk us through that.
There's a new conference called AI in Measurement and Education, and last year I gave a keynote on this, basically on this topic, and this was one of my slides from that. We've talked a little bit about real-world assessment on the right. One thing I'll highlight there is, we talk a lot about natural language processing AI, but there's been a lot of progress in vision AI. And for example, Nesrin Yanir has this great mixed reality science learning environment where kids are learning science by running experiments, and there's a camera watching them and giving them feedback because it can see what they're doing. It's super engaging, super effective. And it's real-world experimentation. They're literally doing the experiments. But I guess in formative assessment, we didn't talk a lot about, but one thing we've observed in some studies is that even though things like the testing effect always have a study phase, it's study, restudy versus study practice, few people have tried to remove that initial study phase, and Paulo Carvalho and Michael Asher, who's here, have run some studies where they did. And what they're finding actually is maybe we don't need all that upfront words at students. Maybe the words at students should come after they try to do stuff in the feedback. And so maybe we don't need lecture then practice, but go right to formative assessment. We'll get more effective learning, and we'll be doing assessment all along the way. Another thing that's on the left here is the more we offload onto technology, the more we have opportunities to do new things with our human-human interaction. And I think that's super important, because the human interaction is ultimately where school, is important. And so many of the things we actually do learn in school about social interaction we never get assessed on are a super important part of going to school. So, maybe there's a chance to do more of those self-directed project work, collaborative learning, big ideas, dialogues. Maybe some of that can be assessed through technology means, but I think, rethinking how we do use class time to be more active in new and better ways while the fundamental skills might get developed through these technology means is, I think, a wonderful opportunity for improving education in the future.
I might push back in the sense of, at some point, you do have to have exposure to the information. So,
yeah, I
for
said
example,
after answering.
Well, we crossed out lecture.
But that's before answering. So at some point, I'm agreeing with you. I'm just saying the point is the time for telling isn't, as Dan Schwartz says, after interaction and then a long lecture. It's better after each interaction.
What about reading a book? Like we read. I think you've probably read more than you think. So
I was just in tears reading a book in Greece last week, so yes.
Yeah. Yes. And part of that is absorbing information, and you can't just go to a collaborative. You can't jump to a collaborative interaction. That is very hard for students to do if they haven't had time to learn prior to that interaction.
Oh yeah, well, I'm thinking of these formative assessments more like not jumping to playing tennis, but practicing your serve and practicing your backhand. So then when you do get to the collaborative project, you have skills in place. Actually, Nezra has shown that she has these science activities and engineering activities. If you do the engineering activities first, you might think, oh, you get a productive failure benefit, but you don't. If you do the science first, you get much better discourse around the engineering, because they're saying, my tower needs to have a wider base, because they learned that from the formative assessment. So I think being prepared, in terms of the fundamental skills, is critical to collaborative project-based stuff, right? So I'm not saying go to that first, but I am saying you don't need a lecture.
Yes, kind of like what we're doing right now. Or collaboratively discussion. Well, we have one more. Who should own the assessment? So we've been talking about episodic assessments and various aspects. Your degree, you have to actually pay to get the certificate at the end. And if we're doing continuous assessment, who will have that assessment? Who owns it? So we have institution, learner, shared ownership, employer, unsure. We included unsure in this one. So if we're moving toward, if we even have an infrastructure for continuous assessment, if we have an ability to pick up on what someone is doing across a lifetime. So thinking about who will have that? I mean, right now, Google owns a large part of our continuous assessment. But how do we give that ownership to the learner? And actually, I should just wait until people respond, shouldn't I?
I think we've reached the law of largest numbers.
I'm surprised at how zero have said the credential provider, which is our current state of affairs, is the credential provider actually owns the credential. And the learner doesn't necessarily even have access to all of their learning across time. So, in closing, what I want to ask each of our panelists for one question about assessment, and that is, in 2035, let's jump to 2045, and so a few years after 5 years, finish the sentence, assessment will be successful if.
We do our job.
And what is that job?
To let others participate. Well, no, I did mean that as our research community and communities, you know, it's amazing how many disciplines contribute to education research, you know. For some reason, I was making a list the other day, and I couldn't finish. It was ... after a while. I mean, there's like 18 different fields of psychology in itself, all of which are relevant to learning. But yeah, together, we need to work together to you know, really pursue a science that tries to not just predict, but explain what's going on and build things that have reach because they incorporate our deeper understanding of what's going on in learning. And you know, that goes for assessment as well.
Who wants to go next?
I can go next. I think we're successful if assessment is supporting the learner, the student, the individual to be independent and be an effective member of society, which is one of the definitions of what education may be for, and you know, it's a reasonable one. You may have a slightly different one, but I think ultimately assessment is there as an instrument to a goal, and the goal is again the ultimate goal of what education is for. And so if we're doing it well, then we're doing it in service of that goal.
So I'll go next. It's somewhat related to what Renee has said. And to give context, I live in Korea, where this East Asian test-based learning is very much hated by students. And my son currently is in high school, and this week he's taking his final exams. And so it's very real to me. I think we're going to be successful with assessment if assessment isn't hated by students, but actually is maybe loved or at least liked by students, by learners who are learning, and actually fosters and motivates them to go on and learn even more.
So, seconding what everybody said, I have a couple of perspectives to this I would like to highlight for this conversation today. So, from my point of view, assessment will be successful if the evidence of learning, all the things that we discussed today, can follow a learner across their life as an asset that they control, that they have clear understanding of, and it's not a record that is held over them, that they are not labeled or punished in some specific way because of how they did in an exam, and that can move with them between systems without their data necessarily having to do that. And a second point of view that I kind of want to share here as a call to action to this community, to this very interdisciplinary community that we have here, is imagine a time and space where you could go from very fine-grained learning process data, like people reading their textbooks on OpenStax, engaging in self-directed learning and practice in Khan Academy, and then taking their certification exams on ASU Online. Imagine if you could work with the breadth of all of those data, what kind of science, what kind of questions would you be asking? And think of what resources or support that you would need to do that well, so that as we think of infrastructure that we build to support you, to move the field forward, we can continue to build them and deliver an effective system to you all so that assessment can be successful in 2045.
Beautiful. Shall we open it up to the audience? Yes. Do we have somebody here to deliver mics? Yes. We have the...
Hi, Craig Zillis, University of Illinois. I think the thing that I'm surprised there wasn't more discussion about is the notion of trust. That we have the ability to collect a lot of data while the student is at home, but it's not obvious what we can do with that data. And so the thing that I think is really interesting that we should study more is how can we use a small amount of trusted data in conjunction with a large amount of potentially untrustable data to make a decision of, has the student met the learning objectives, and do we need to collect more trusted data because the two don't match? So I have a short paper, what I call Bayesian grading, which sort of suggests this idea, but I have no idea how to do it. And so I'm wondering if people have thought about this or suggesting that maybe it's an area we should focus on.
And I have a question to come back to you, because I think I was interpreting. To me, trust, when I talk about trust, it's whether the learner trusts the safety of the system, so their trust in the system and also the system's trust in the assessment. I think you're talking about one or the other.
Yeah, so I'm from the credential provider standpoint, that there was the comment about the English essays that were written by AI, and I think it's a losing battle to look at an artifact and decide, to what degree did a student use AI, and so, trust. I think in-person proctoring, in-person oral exams. There's a lot, communication during in-class activities. There's a lot of signals that we can use that we can trust because, it's face-to-face, and I think anything online is at least somewhat suspect.
Mm-hmm. Thoughts about this? Responses? Panelists?
Well, I think it's super important. I do think that there's a role, too, for not only to increase trust that we're getting reliable and valid data, but also, there's something about, I think some students are not so good under pressure, but some students shine under pressure, and having, it's kind of like, running at a track meet, I run faster than I do in practice. If I want an opportunity to show that, then maybe we do want to have these special events to allow for that more focus, in addition to the trust, which I fully agree we need to solve in this era. And by the way, one thing I love about what you guys are doing is you're trying to create these assessment centers that multiple faculty use, and maybe even they give the same assessments across different instances of courses. That's a huge advance in itself as well.
We had a question up here, the very first hand that went up.
May I go, maybe? On the back.
Oh, I can't actually see. Yes, does somebody already have the mic?
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, okay, sorry.
May I go?
Sure.
Yeah, great, thanks. Very interesting discussion. You raised some very nice points about making assessments more likable to students. We know that assessments is a bit of a challenge both for teachers and students. And maybe so far are a struggle for both sides. Do you have any advices for how to move forward, to make them more pleasurable, better, and more suitable for learning?
Advice?
I found a lot of success in making the assessment very similar to something that students might do out when they're in a job. Students tend to see the relevance of it. We did some work, this is sort of unrelated in some ways, with code.org some years ago, looking at what was most predictive of students engaging and doing well in code.org coding problems. We measured a bunch of psychological variables, including mindset and different motivational variables. And the one that was most predictive of students doing the work and coming back was perceived relevance of the problems that they were being given. I always highlight that to students that, look, the data I'm giving you is real data, or it's like real data. These are problems that you would encounter there. There's missing values. There's mistakes in the data like there would be in the real world. I find that is very motivating to them. Likewise, when you think about the use of AI, at least in my class, allow them to use it because they would be allowed to use it also in the real world. And I want them, I give them guidance on how to use it responsibly, how to check it, not to just accept everything. And so making it realistic would be my one point of advice.
One small thing to add to that, if I may, is the opposite of relevance, which is irrelevance, right? So a lot of the times when, this is like coming from a non-American culture, let's say like you're a Korean student and you take an English test to assess your English proficiency, but the content is about eating turkey on Thanksgiving, for example, right? So here in Korea, we don't eat turkey, and we don't have, we have Thanksgiving like Chuseok, but we don't eat turkey. So the content itself is irrelevant on top of this foreign language that's English. So when you have these assessments that are irrelevant, then it's actually really bad for the students. And you can use AI. There's some recent research called like transcreation. It's sort of like translation, but sort of translation with this cultural or other sort of relevance-based translation to fit the learner.
More questions?
Hi, everyone. First of all, thank you for the informative and thought-provoking discussion. My name is Sarah. I'm from Khalifa University. I'm a PhD student there. So my question is, education has different aspects to it. So it is economical, there is the ethical, there is the cultural part, but it's mainly economical. So what are your thoughts about using data and insights driven from the job market into shaping new ways of assessing students? Thank you.
Great idea. It's hard to do, but I think it's a great idea. I think we should strive. I think that's at least partly how I was interpreting the real world assessments. Like, can we embed assessments in the workplace? And the example I gave with our tutors who are working as tutors is one example that, like an existence proof that it can be done in one area. But yeah, I think it would be, and programming was another example that I'm aware of as a situation where we could do that. But yeah, we should try to do more of that. Ultimately, that's what we want to do, is predict beyond and outside of school, and whether it's employment or being a good citizen or being a good human, right? All those things would be great if we knew whether our schools were helping achieve those things in the real world.
I think there's been, there's quite a bit of current work being done and funded about that, about how to take skills, and we haven't talked very much about competencies, mastery, like what is the goal of assessment, and if it's mastery, then you're really filling in dots, and part of that can happen in a workplace. There's even projects that are looking at the extent to which one can assess skills in commercial games, or as you were saying, within the workplace. And that is one of the things where those worlds collide, is educational institutions. Their job is to deliver the education and then deliver credentials. And so they will, many of them will resist using the experiences that are more naturalistic in order to document their education. So while there's work being done, I think that there's a societal, there's an economic push against it.
You go first.
No,
Renee.
you please.
No, please. Okay. So I kind of want to say that the economy affects education like as it is, right? But we are at a time when the job markets are pretty volatile. So it's not that we want to kind of be caught up in these swings that may not last for very long, but there is value to thinking about what are the key elements that will be resilient across these swings. So when we think about 21st century skills, we think about collaboration, communication, critical thinking, creativity. Like, these will remain important despite the upswings and downswings of the typical economic tides. You know, you see it now with the AI and jobs and changing job market and all of these conversations that we are having. So I see value in thinking about these more resilient, durable skills, but like letting short-term changes dramatically impact these systems, which again, they are not very fast when it comes to changes that happen. Like, we should take a pause and think about that.
Yeah, I agree. And what I would just add is that there's a challenge of how you measure success. I mean, one thing is to go to employers and listen and, you know, ask them, so what are you seeing? You know, what would you like our graduates to know and be able to do? And universities, you know, generally do some of that. And then it takes some time for some of that to trickle into curriculum. But then there's the other thing of looking at how successful are graduates out there, right? And a lot of universities track things like employment rates and, you know, put them on their websites, average starting salary. But, you know, they're not really a great way of assessing at the level that we would like to assess whether what students are learning is the right thing for them. And so there's some nice work that's come out of the Burning Glass Institute, for instance, that has looked at how do we measure some of the more important things, like whether people are moving up over time in their careers and whether they're flexible enough to move around when necessary. That may be interesting. But connecting that to the educational data has been challenging, although, you know, labor economists working with sort of some other researchers are starting to make those connections and starting to see. And, you know, a lot of what is being learned from that is that the skills that Debshila just mentioned, collaboration, critical thinking, you know, leadership, are really important for people to keep learning, keep developing, reskill, upskill as necessary.
I kind of want to add one more thing, if I may. Yeah. So the economy is really all about the bottom lines of corporations and companies, right? At the end of the day, what was discussed here is all about like, what is the purpose of the assessment? And ultimately, we want individuals to be thriving, happy people who are good citizens in the world that they exist in. And so as we think of like what kind of assessments should be guiding an individual's path, we should not lose sight of that bigger goal and be drawn towards like thinking about these organizational bottom lines. So just there.
And with that, we have been between you and a reception that started 8 minutes ago. So we will close out. Hope you enjoyed our chat today, and thank you very much for coming to see us.
And the reception is downstairs where you see the big gate on the first floor.